Now, switching back to the very uncertain side, should we talk about Peru?
I don't even know where to begin with Peru.
Yeah.
Like, reading the articles about this election has just been an utter mess.
Well, I think we can start with the statement about Peru that we said last time about how every single elected president since constitution was changed with Fujimori after the battle on the kind of leftist guerrillas has either gone to jail or killed themselves before going to jail.
Yeah, which I couldn't believe I couldn't believe it when you told me last week, but no, I confirmed it. That is a fact.
Yeah.
So, for context of how this happens, now we'll do a bit of a dive in for historical sake, but on the very top, what you need to know is that Peru is a presidential system. On paper, the president is the most powerful position and should be able to do what they want with, obviously, limits. What has happened recently is that Congress has become increasingly powerful, and most of the time, the candidate that becomes president does not have a leading majority in Congress.
Yeah.
And Congress have essentially used whatever means to impeach presidents and get rid of them. And all they need to do to impeach them is you don't need to, it's not like America where it's like needs to have, broken the law.
Yeah.
They need to essentially say he's morally ambiguous.
Yeah, or not fit for office, it's not good
not
enough.
fit for office.
So you could invent everything about that. I mean, imagine you have that in
and
the
they
UK.
they do invent everything.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the last time, it was definitely an impeachable offence by the time he did it. But Castillo, the last elected president, who was a teacher from a very indigenous area, a very poor man, he kind of he'd been impeached so many times but not removed that he just got fed up and kind of did do a self-coup, but just called for new elections. He's like, this parliament is unworkable. And there's part of me that honestly sympathizes with him. Like, yeah, okay, it was illegal as fuck. Like, no denying that.
Yeah, well, to give that, so he tried to self-coup. So he tried to get the military and his government on side and get rid of Congress.
Yeah.
And the day he started it, everyone abandoned him and it failed miserably and he fled to Mexico. And I think he's returned to Peru now.
I can't remember, but he has something like an 11-year jail
it's
coming his way. And so him and the predecessor Kaczynski were both just had a mess going on with Congress, and then a huge mess in the presidents after them. I mean, both of them had, I think, at least 3 successors within their not congressional term necessarily, because there were other elections sometimes, but their presidential kind of term that should have been completed. One of, I think, Kaczynski's, the person that came 2 after him, lasted 5 days. And pretty similarly, we had one that lasted less than 90 days.
Yeah, I mean, Peru is
only
some striking...
the most unpopular president in probably the history of democracy in Balate. So, yeah.
So, Peru has some striking similarities to Bulgaria, really, in terms of the instability it's had in recent years. I mean, they are just recycling presidents. That's a good point.
And the corruption. The other 3 presidents that were elected after Fujimori, some of them quite popular because of the economy at one of the times, but all essentially then resigned because of this Odebrecht corruption scandal that plagued Peruvian politics.
So you've mentioned his name, and I think it's arrested. Yeah. So you've mentioned his name, and there is no way that you can talk about Peruvian politics and understand Peruvian politics today without talking about one man himself, and that is Alberto Fujimori. Yeah. Now you might
doesn't sound Peruvian.
Yeah, you might initially be thinking, Fujimori, that doesn't sound Peruvian, that sounds Japanese. And you are correct, he is ethnically Japanese, but there is actually a big Japanese community in Peru. There has been for a long time.
It's like there is in Brazil. If you ever go to Sao Paulo, try some Japanese food. It's very good.
I was about to say this. Apparently, Japanese food is Brazilian Japanese food is a whole subgenre, but it's apparently quite traditional Japanese, but fusion up.
I tried it. It was very, very good. It's the best Japanese food I've ever had. I've never been to Japan, of course. But it was truly sensational.
Yeah, there you go.
So I think Japan and also some Lebanon.
Yeah, they have
huge South American diasporas.
But yes, so there you go. Anyway, so Alberto Fujimori, yes, he's ethnically Japanese, but he was the president of Peru for, I think, 1992 to 2000, or maybe 1990, for a while.
10 years, yeah.
And when he came in, he was sort of sold as this anti-establishment, good guy. I mean, Peru, you have to understand, is pretty much divided racially. And in the sense that you have the white urban elite in Lima, the capital, and along the coast.
Exactly.
And then you have the Andean regions where predominantly the indigenous populations
And it
live.
only takes any election map in recent years to show you this.
You can see the divide. So Fujimori, when he came in, was seen as this, quietly spoken, sort of nice guy, not white. Maybe he was going to do some good. And initially, he did do good. So you may have heard about Shining Path, who were this hardline. And when I say hardline, I mean hardline, like guerrilla terrorist group. They were doing some heinous stuff. I mean, it was lawless what was going on. They were like Maoists.
Yeah, they're
communist.
comparable to people in some parts of East Asia. Really.
Bad people. And Fujimori came in. He immediately abandoned all his election promises, but he went hardline on Shining Path and got rid of them. He captured their leader, and it pretty much dismantled them. And terrorism was on the lows, and people loved him for that. And then he came in and also did some, centrist reforms, made an independent Bank of Peru, and did some financial reforms. But this was a big...
heavy,
privatized. He didn't do what we've seen in
became
Chavez or Korea.
By the indigenous
Hated.
communities. Like, really, really hated. Because a lot of them live in these very, very rural areas where they relied on public services for pretty much everything.
For context of what they did, so... none of the industries were privatized. They got rid of price controls. But in the context that Peru had inflation at 7,000%. So, I mean, if you were someone working in the cities, your salary was worthless. I mean, 7,000% inflation. That is, that's we're talking
Venezuela, Argentina, /Weimar.
So these reforms, ultimately, now you look back at them and they'd be quite good, but it made him immensely unpopular. So then what did he do? He did something they call the Golpe, which I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right, and I don't know why I went German there, but that just means a self-coup.
Yeah.
And he couped himself, but got support, replaced...
You see where Castillo got the...
You see, that's where they got their ideas from somewhere. Essentially got rid of Congress and made him like the strong man, the dictator. Yeah. And it went a bit downhill from there.
Yes.
I mean, became incredibly repressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what happens after this, read up more about Fujimori if you want to know everything. We can't go everything at the time, but it's fascinating. But anti-Fujimorism becomes... Fujirismo, yeah, becomes a big part of Peruvian politics that then dominates the next few elections until Keiko Fujimori comes into the political scene, the daughter of Alberto.
And this is what I mean. I mean, yes, he may have started off doing good, but it was very much a paternalistic dictatorship by the end. And I think the fact that his daughter is now the main character of his legacy.
Exactly. And so she first runs in
2010
election in, I believe, 2010, 2011?
2010.
So the first time, she nearly wins. She gets like 48.5% of the vote. So she then tries again in 2016. And what happens this time? She gets 49% of the vote. She then tries again in 2021 and gets 50% of the vote. Like, it's like 49.9% of the vote. So she is pretty much a serial loser, but not in the sense of like getting battered every time, just like coming so desperately close, so sadly close to the presidency that you really feel she must be desperate right now. It's kind of like the person going around the club, like trying to get with someone for the whole night. That's kind of how I imagine Keiko
It's
Fujimori.
Worth explaining. So Latin America, by and large, the way they have the presidential elections is like France. They have a runoff. So as many candidates as possible can enter the first race. I think they had 35 candidates in this election. It was something crazy.
I mean, just like the last election, if you get near 20% of the vote, congratulations, you're into the second round.
Yeah. But now what they do is they eliminate everyone apart from the top two.
Exactly.
And then the top two go through. And the reason why Keiko Fujimori has often been seen as losing is because the Fujimori name is just so disliked amongst a vast amount of Peruvians. Even the ones that do eventually vote for her still don't like her.
Yeah.
They're just like, well, I don't want to let
But
the left wingers.
it has its fan base, you know, so it always gets her to the second round in recent elections. So she has the people who vote for her. It's most likely to be the largest party in Congress, which gives her power as well. So she will always be there. It's about, can people on the other side mobilize to defeat her? And we've seen it in various ways. We saw The first time, a pretty left-wing kind of nationalist guy came in, defeated her. The next time, it was a centre-right Kaczynski, again a foreign name, like a Polish name, came in and defeated her from a very centre-right platform. And then a very kind of like indigenous, I think even self-defined communist or Marxist-Leninist conservative profile beat her last time.
Yeah, I mean, Castillo, the former president of Peru, he was a teacher, like a teacher in the Andes by profession. And I think a lot of people will agree that he was good at heart, had good intentions, but was politically naive.
Yeah, and I think they made him very corruptible.
I mean, he was
not even just say on money, but just like he gave in to the kind of conservative side of Congress and said, "Oh well, you know what? Like I've really campaigned for like social rights and everything, but I kind of need you guys to have a majority in Congress." So he just went like really socially conservative, stuck to the kind of radical leftist economically, but then never really enacted any of it because
I mean, just for context, just to build on your point, he was putting in centre-left cabinet members, and then because Congress is threatening to impeach him, he's like, "Okay, I'll put in one of your guys."
Exactly.
And like he was just giving in it, and like you said, I don't think it was because he was corrupt. He was so afraid of losing his position that he was just giving in to
But I think the power kind of corrupted him in the end. And the worst thing is he came from a party that had never been in Congress before and kind of just rose up at the last minute in this very uncertain election where he ended up being the one that just got a few more percentage points than the other and ended up being second. The party's inexperience, the person who came after him was by any Peruvian standards much worse than him. She just kind of tried to cling on to power in desperate ways, really went against the left, but came from a leftist tradition, so everyone hated her. Somehow clung on for a few years, and then eventually got removed. So what are we seeing now? Once again, we're seeing loads of candidates. I mean, on election day, we had no idea who was going to finish second. The person who looks like has finished second is not someone that with any of the polls had finished second.
No, Robert Sanchez is his name.
It looked like for a long time Aliaga was going to finish second.
Let's give some context.
So we should give some context. I mean, what does Keiko represent, right? First of all,
Keiko is the continuity candidate of Fujimori, which is just... It's hard to say what it is, to be honest.
Some would say it's far right, but it's also very establishment, isn't it?
Very establishment, very populist.
Yeah.
Hardline stance on security issues, continuing.
Yes, exactly.
That's a key part of this. I mean, Peru's crime networks have only been growing with the instability in government. So they're sort of promising that.
Including mining, which is like illegal mining is a big thing.
And then clientelism.
Yeah.
It is...
It should certainly be who the markets want.
It would be who the markets want. But it'd be difficult to put her on a social conservative scale.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely... I think she is a social conservative, but I don't think, like, that's her thing. It really is about kind of, economic liberalism.
Yeah.
A kind of disregard, essentially, for, like, indigenous rights and focusing on, we have actually big industry in Peru, because they do. A lot of the largest companies, we said that earlier, Hungary is not investable. Peru is
we'll
if you want to look into stocks and stuff, you can invest in Peru.
Anyway, so we've got Fujimori.
So we've got Fujimori who represents that. Then there's... we will touch on Aliaga first, I think.
Yeah, you might as well.
To compare her to Fujimori. It looked like he was going to win. He is also definitely on the right end of the spectrum.
He is a mega social conservative.
But I would say that Fujimori is perhaps more comparable to maybe a caste in Chile, a kind of traditional, maybe Pinochet, just very hardline right, but not really populist. Aliaga is just like the worst of Trump and Milei combined, saying he's going to become a Bukele with the citizens, threatening the worst kind of economic reactions to opponents and everything. Interestingly, unlike Fujimori, who is perhaps more pragmatic with China because of the amount of Chinese investments, he's just like, no, USA, Trump-Milei axis, we're going to be the number 3, or maybe number 4.
Which economically, if you understand Peru, is pretty stupid. But we will come to that. The last candidate then is Robert Sanchez. Exactly. And he is the most different compared to the other two.
Yeah.
So far, it seems likely that he will be the challenger.
Yeah,
He
he's only
is
about 0.1% ahead,
Yes,
and the fact voting like from 3 weeks ago is not ended, but it looks like it should be.
But he is, hard left, hatred of the elite, hatred of Lima. Like I said, Peru is very much Lima and the coast versus the provinces, and by virtue of that, whites v the indigenous.
Yeah.
So Robert Sanchez is very much representing the indigenous voter, the Andean voter.
Yeah, exactly. And he was, as perhaps you mentioned, he was part of the Castillo government at first when he went for very much a left government. So we didn't know if it was going to be him. There were some centrist candidates, some other left candidates, another far right candidate who was probably even worse than Yaga, saying he was willing to kill basically anyone who got in his way. That's how kind of unstable Peruvian politics has got to. We've got those people there. But yeah, Sanchez, he certainly knows Castillo. I think he's more educated than Castillo. He has more of a political background. So he won't worry people as much. Perhaps in that sense, he's more votable. But there will be people who kind of voted for Castillo and didn't, perhaps especially in indigenous areas, didn't get out of it what they wanted. And they'll be like, well, is it worth voting for Sanchez? But maybe the scare of Keiko is enough.
So those are the three options for Peru.
Yeah.
We're meant to know now who the two options are going to be. But if you read about it, they've had one candidate Ali Agri's accused everyone of doing fraud, which EU observers have denied. But
Keiko has backed that.
Yeah. Basically, they can just say what you want in Peru. The system's a complete mess. It barely functions, but there we go.
And of course, Keiko made a huge issue last time when she lost by like 0.2% of the vote. And tried to put a Trump Bolsonaro kind of thing.
But in order to understand, I said this before, in order to understand the Peruvian politics, like I said, Congress is essentially where the power is at. What Keiko has done is, as Lucas said, she's lost 3 elections in a row. Yeah. But her party always seems to end up being the largest anyway in Congress.
Yeah.
So she just says, okay, well, I'm not the president. I'm just going to do my best to remove this current president. And because they have some weird laws that you can just say they're not fit for duty,
and it's
she does
interesting
it.
now. So Peru has made a constitutional change and introduced a Senate.
It's our bicameral.
And yes, exactly. It's gone bicameral. And so can I have a look? But it looks like in the Senate that the leftist parties, though they are different elements of leftism in them, have got a majority. And this is kind of a shock in Peru. This does not usually happen, at least not in recent years. In the chamber, though, it looks like on the current results, it's 50-50 between the right parties and the left parties. The right parties are all like hardline far right. It's Aliaga's, Fujimori's, and I believe another. So we might have a kind of total deadlock going forward. So we'll have to see what that entails. But I mean, I don't even want to start speculating about that because first we've got to work out if this presidential election is going to take place. The luck for Peru is they leave a shit ton of time between their first round and second round. So they've got time to work it out.
So when is the second round presidential?
I want to say it's not June, it's July.
Okay, so they've got time.
So there is time.
Well, they probably know that there's going they probably go into this and be like,
exactly.
You know what, guys? Exactly. I don't think we're going to get the elections counted on time. Let's just delay it slightly.
Yeah. So,
but crazy. Maybe this is Fujimori's time to come through.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, you can look at stocks and kind of like you can tell they're kind of concerned she might not win. The stocks have like really rallied up because Peru's economy, despite everything, it's kind of like Bulgaria. It's gone really, really well.
No, this is what needs to be said. Peru's like you said, it's averaging like 3% growth each year. You compare this to and also it's not like this is Latin America we're talking about. This is a place that's known for consistently underperforming.
Yeah.
Now Peru could probably be doing better than it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, Argentina was hitting 7,000 inflation, and actually that's Fujimori, not Keiko, her dad Alberto. That's his legacy.
Yeah.
The fact that the bank is independent, the fact that privatization did come in. And, they've got inflation curbing measures, deficits are fairly measured.
Yeah. On the macro issues, that if you want to invest in stocks and stuff in Peru, it's there. And I mean,
what they need to understand is Peru has one major industry, and that is copper mining.
Exactly.
And if you didn't know, a lot of the new technologies that we tend to love, whether that's batteries, EV, data centers, AI, all these sort of industries, they love copper because obviously used in all the circuits. And who makes all of that? Well, 50% of the world's copper goes to China. And China has just built a new port in Peru.
Yep.
So There needs to be this. That's why if Ali Agri comes in
Exactly.
as this anti-Chinese force, when China have just invested massively in a new port and a new infrastructure and all their mining, that might not be great.
And that's why obviously Trump will so want Aliaga to win. He'll be hoping on Keiko as well, because certainly Sanchez is going to partner up with China. So he'll have some hope with Keiko, but I think Keiko is fairly pragmatic compared to Aliaga. She will probably look more towards the US, but I don't think she's going to bend the relationship with China. Aliaga would be a total reversal. So this is not a finance podcast, but I mean, probably, if you think Keiko is going to win, you could probably put some decent stocks in some Peruvian things, and it will probably shoot up in the future.
Yeah,
I mean, if the left wing you are fucked.
So have a look.
They're going to probably spend on benefits, get the deficit down, and it will probably tank for the stock markets, though. Indigenous people will be
very telling if you look at the companies that are invested in Peru right now. Yeah. And actually, they have what's remarkable, like you said, it's macroeconomic stability. But the fact that companies are willing to invest and actually don't really react to presidents being sacked. I mean, when Castillo was getting, self-couped himself, the markets didn't really care. They were just like, you know what, I'm sure the conditions will continue. But you've got Glencore, Anglo-American, the Chinese state-owned port builder, major mining companies are invested in Peru very happily because it is just the future. I mean, they are the second or third biggest copper producer in the world, and I sit on a big deposit of it. But actually, it's quite interesting because illegal mining is now a massive problem.
Yes, yeah.
And I remember thinking it was a Vice or one of those channels did a documentary of it on the life of an illegal copper miner. It looked pretty horrific up in the Andean. The conditions are awful.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you find these documentaries in Peru, I've seen others in Peru as well, and I mean, there is incredible poverty. You compare it to Lima,
No, and the Andean regions look.
It truly is. There's these quite religious cults are pretty popular in some parts of Peru, and there was even a party that kind of got formed out of one of them, and I think may have even finished second in elections back in the day, because these communities are totally disregarded. They didn't have oxygen during COVID. It really was awful for them.
But this is the problem, is that they have a lot of money coming into the country. The GDP is growing, but I mean, for one, they have a very low tax to GDP ratio, which means actually they're not getting that much of the money from the people. But clearly, it's just sitting in the elite's hands.
The legacy of Fujimori.
My girlfriend went to Peru last year, and she was like, "There's 3 districts in Peru, in Lima, that are absolutely beautiful, but then there is abject poverty just around it, and that's in Lima alone, let alone before going to the regions."
No, I know, yeah.
So there is promise in Peru, and it would be good for the markets for one of the right-leaning ones to get in. But if the right-leaning ones are just going to continue the elites benefiting and keep the system going, is that going to benefit the everyday person in Peru? Yeah. Probably not.
And you've seen in the past, I mean, the legacy of Fujimori is there because they elected leftist presidents afterwards, but they never really dared touch the economic model. And it ended up with someone like Castillo. So we saw, Castillo didn't have the backing in Congress, so he didn't kind of do the anti-business measures he may have done. But now Sanchez is very close to it. So maybe next time you will see that. And all of a sudden, and it would be fair enough, for the indigenous people to go against this huge wealth. But the industry would really suffer. So I think it's a dangerous move to really just keep disregarding indigenous people, because voters will show themselves up, and they are the majority of the population. So I think...
But again, I think, first and foremost, the main thing for Peru is to have some stability. Because if you look neighbourly to Ecuador is a country that is in almost total collapse. Yeah. I mean, it's crime-riddled, narco-terrorism everywhere. Yeah. It's complete elite dominance in the bits that still work.
Oh, and because of the instability, Peru's crime has really shot up.
Yeah. And this is
their chance to stop it early, actually. So you're right, stability is hugely important.
There is the idea that Peru is just 5 years behind Ecuador, because with this current instability, if it keeps getting worse and worse, they are going to become more and more like them, and that is the real danger. Total governmental collapse. You're no longer controlling your regions, and the crime steps in, And, you know, it's already, like you said, embedded itself into Peru. So unless someone comes in and fixes it, it will be a very slippery
it's
slope.
totally understandable why people starve themselves on Bukele to win elections there, because
For everyone who doesn't know, the El Salvador president, quasi-dictator.
Mass trial to us.
Yeah, you would have seen, like, I mean, they've arrested, if you've got a tattoo, you're thrown into the jails there.
But you know, the thing was that
solved.
the security really got solved, and so he is a model.
But I do wonder, maybe you kind of need some of these characters to come in and sort of be radical. I mean, Latin America is a region that is consistently underperformed. If you go back to pre-World War I, Argentina was one of the richest countries in the world.
Yeah.
And now it's just, you know, they've had hyperinflation after hyperinflation.
Well, Argentina was famously a lack of investment in infrastructure, you know, in industry, and instability gives you that. Now, in Argentina, it wasn't really because of instability, but you know, if you don't have investment in these amazing resources you have, because Argentina also had amazing resources, but focused it pretty much on agriculture. And of course, there's the whole thing with the strong trade unions there, other things, the whole story. But Peru cannot keep having this story of instability, lack of governments.
It's been blessed with bloody copper in a time when copper is more in demand than bloody gold. Like, it is the future metal.
Exactly.
And, you know, just export it to China. China will pay you for it. You know, you can get America and China fighting over your resources, you know, start a little trading war between them. You can just be playing both sides. They have a real opportunity here if they can get a government that doesn't get shut down and doesn't end up with either them being arrested, the president being arrested, or killing himself before about to be arrested.
That would be ideal.